Thank you all for coming. I'm going to read two short little pieces. I consider these essays. You might not. That's fine. They're from the same collection. It's called The Hard Problem, which isn't published anywhere, but it's my book that has yet to be published. So the first little piece I'm going to read is called The Tiny Men's in Your Boobs, which is very apt, seeing that I had a baby 7 weeks ago. So this will make sense. Okay, maybe. When you turn 28 or 29 or 30, or maybe even when you turn 25, a strange and mysterious feeling will come over you. Inside of this feeling, you will imagine the tiny men's inside the tiny factories in the innermost insideness of your boobs have awoken from their long night of sleep. The tiny men's do not have wives and do not have homes, but have only ever been sleeping on the tiny hard floors of the tiny factories. But now the tiny men's rise from their sleeps and grab their even tinier lunch pails packed with tiny sandwiches made of hard salami and hard cheese and punch their tiny time cards. And once they get to their tiny coal furnaces, they begin shoveling with very tiny shovels, and eventually the small cogs begin to turn. And while you do not feel the small cogs are actually producing milk, you feel they are producing the idea of milk, or perhaps producing milk steam from the tiny smokestacks of the tiny factory. In the innermost insideness of your boobs, the faintest clouds of milk begin to occlude the sky, the boobs sky. This is a weather of which I speak. This is an entire system. And you can feel the bottoms of the very tiny shoes as they move there inside you, inside the factory. It is similar to the furry feeling on the roof of your mouth when a kitten licks your finger, only the furry feeling is on the inside of your boobs. This strange feeling will arise when in the presence of babies or kittens or commercials for fresh scented detergent. Sometimes it might even occur when you are looking at a particularly adorable cupcake. And it will be against everything you have always been, against your cussing and your middle fingers and too many drinks, against short skirts and impractical shoes, against never once in your life imagining your own goddamn wedding. And not even because you were antagonistic about the idea of girls imagining their own goddamn weddings, but because honestly it just never occurred to you to imagine your goddamn wedding. You were busy imagining cocktails and cities and very expensive hats. Let's be honest, you were busy imagining hot dudes with dicks. But now the tiny men's in your boobs make the tiny steams. They stir vats full of hormone concoctions with wooden paddles. And at 28 or 29 or 30, and sometimes even at 25, you know you could nurse just about anything with a pinkness. You could stick your boobs in just about anyone's mouth. It's so very distracting. It's so very strange. And the whiteness of the blank paper in front of you shines particularly white now. The whiteness of the blank computer screen is so very white without even a hint of pink. Where are the cute jelly beans and the skin of the crocus buds pushed up through the marrow of spring dirt? Where are my goddamn kitties doing their goddamn cute kitty things? And the tiny men's. They will not stop with the shoveling and the coal and the furnaces. Their skins tan in the furnace fires, and they haul in more sacks of powdered hormones to dump in the vats to make the milk steam. And these men's, oh, these vile men's. In some other place further still inside of you, down where babies get made, an entire skyscraper of very tiny men's in very tiny suits sit in rows and rows and rows at tiny typewriters writing their tiny, tiny books. And you want to be able to think about the tiny men's writing the tiny books as you once did. You want it to conjure that feeling, the burn, the animus. You awaken in the mornings now with the word animus in your head, and it hovers there at your shoulder as you move through the days. You want the animus of the clicking, of the incessant clicking, but sometimes you cannot hear it. The sky grows and grows and grows beautiful, and the clouds now are so very white and tinged with pink. And look out there. There is so much space out there. There is everything. And the tiny books, they are so very tiny. You rise into the sky of milk clouds and orbiting kittens that meow like clocks, and occasionally blobs of jello with giant and lovely eyes fly by too. And that's when you see you were wrong. The clouds are not milk clouds at all. They are clouds of cotton candy, and they are delicious. Thanks. I have just one more short piece, and this is the title piece from The Hard Problem, called The Hard Problem. Okay, let's just calm down. Let's just approach this rationally. There's no need to go getting all belligerent. There's no need to invoke unicorns and death and boobs. There is a need for precision and measured thought. There is a need for no emotions and the absence of freaking out, and only for a very serene sciencing. Science says that the hard problem comes in trying to explain consciousness. The scientists get all fussy and fidgety, as if every single one of them is wearing woolen underpants, when they try to articulate what consciousness is. Certainly, according to science, our human experience should be able to be explained as a complex system of firing neurons and chemicals and blood runnething through our unholy veins. But the hard problem, for the itchy scientists, comes after all the neural paths are charted, after every chemical is taxonomized and neatly labeled in block print, after every last drop of blood has been accounted for. The hard problem exists on the other side of answers, in the quiet valley where the itchy scientists receive the hard problem mimeographed on a single white sheet. Question: what is it like to be an alive human, having these insanely beautiful experiences of walking through the world? Please only use integers in your answer. The scientists scratch themselves raw. There is talk of eczema and flaking. There are very many soothing tubes of creams. All the equation and maths and very complicated computations might not explain it, might not fully articulate how fucking awesome it is to exist. If the physical data cannot perfectly describe the consciousness of the human animal, then what can? Something metaphysical, something spiritual or new age or woo-woo? The scientists scratch and scratch and scratch through their skin and into the warm blood of muscle. They sink into the throbbing of organs, down to the bones, where they whittle away to the marrow, and then, finding nothing, start on their heads, scratching off their hair and encountering the skull, boring holes and cracking themselves open, burrowing down through the grayness until all that remains of each of them is a single finger poking at an almost indecipherable wisp of somethingness. This wisp, you see, is the unspeakable integer, uncovered there in the green valley of silence, where 17 disembodied fingers float in the air, each pointing to its own answer. And so goes the itchiest problem in the history of the universe. The writer's hard problem is similar to the itchy scientists, except the writer is not itchy. She is overflowing with ennui. Perhaps we might say she's watery. Consider every silence between every word ever written a dark drop in a vast ocean. Consider how many quiet oceans we filled with our tomes of words, and how those seas of silence are where we now swim, struggling for shore. The watery writer writes and writes and writes, a lifetime of words she writes, and still they cannot begin to articulate the love that has wound its way inside her, slowly over centuries, the cool, clear water working quietly, indecipherably, until there is a shallow creek bed cut there in the bones. This is her love that has worn away such hardness after millions, after billions of years. But there is no way to say this, no way to truly write it, to telegraph the bright life, the glare of it, how it hurts and how it's beautiful, how the lifeness of everything grows loud, like a great metal ship blaring its foghorn as it infinitesimally moves toward land. There is a ship-shaped meteor approaching. There is a meteor-shaped ship. We should be living as if every moment the bigness is bearing down on us in a deafening and blinding and overwhelming in every way whoosh, but shit and fuck and shit. There is no way of saying this. There is no way of saying life. There is no way of saying cataclysm. There is only profanity. There are only water metaphors and images of vast black oceans. There's only a great white ship with colonies of seaweed-stained barnacles clinging to the hull. There are only meteors that look like cheese, or deep-sea sponges, or the squishy brain of God. There are only space rocks shifting around out there, hopeless. And what of us? Of our hard problem? Forget the scientists, forget space. I mean, who are you? I mean, tell me what your version of being alive is. For the rest of our days, you'll work on an equation or a serum or a very complicated computer program, and I'll sit here at my desk writing. When we're old and gray, with very many grandkittens and great-grandkittens, we'll exchange projects in an effort to understand the other's reality. You will have made me a robot that perfectly duplicates the you I fell in love with back in our younger days. I will have written you a fat book full of thinly veiled, cat-laced stories chronicling the previous 65 years. I will connect electrodes to my head, and the robot will control me with the powers of its mind. You'll read my book and slowly absorb my style, and then, on the day you finish the book, you will take up the pen and continue on where I left off. Eventually, I will happily play video games while you labor at your desk, depressed. We won't even know what happened, only that the other person seems so familiar, as if we knew them in a past life. I will watch you and remember what it was like to be me. You will watch me and remember yourself. And eventually, in the end, I hope it's no longer clear which life we lived, nor what we felt. I just want to show you something. I mean, everything. Thanks.